Next up is Arianna Campbell. Okay, Arianna Campbell is a consultant for Boomer Consulting, Inc. Okay, Arianna helps accounting firms challenge the status quo by leading process improvement initiatives that result in increased profitability and client satisfaction. She also facilitates the development and cultivation of future firm leaders in the P3 Leadership Academy. We are so excited to have her on. Full disclosure, we have a podcast interview coming up with Arianna that we just love so much. We can't wait to get it out in just a couple weeks. So we had to invite her onto the summit. So Arianna, I'm going to let you run with it. And thank you so much for jumping on the summit today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I'm loving the energy of this summit. Hopefully everyone can see my slides, but we're going to be going into our session on increasing workflow effectiveness. And I'm excited about how it's going to tie into some of the things that John talked about. So I am Arianna Campbell. I'm the director at Boomer Consulting. I've been with Boomer for about 12 years now. And my area of focus is really helping firms with streamlining their processes and making those processes more effective. And some of the things that John pointed to are really what I have the opportunity to be able to help firms with, of helping to find those weakest links within their processes so that they can continually improve and make them better. And you see there that that's actually one of my passions, is helping CPA firms navigate their continuous improvement journeys. A little bit about Boomer Consulting. So Boomer Consulting has been around for about 25 years. And we work exclusively with CPA firms. And we help them in these 5 areas that are critical to firm success. We help with process, talent, leadership, technology, and growth. And as you're thinking about these different areas, one thing that we often find is that you can't talk about one without talking about the others. So we see that process and technology are all intertwined. So that's a little bit about Boomer Consulting and what we do. We're going to go ahead and jump into the content for our day. So one of the first things we need to start off with is understanding the importance of workflow. So one of the things to focus on when you're thinking about increasing the effectiveness of your workflow is understanding the purpose of it altogether. So workflow is the foundation of your organization, or can be the foundation of your organization. And when we think about workflow automation, that is the opportunity to really automate those tasks and projects that are happening in your firm or in your business. Workflow connects people, process, and technology. It also allows for visibility and for resource management and for the tracking of all your projects. So workflow is really an essential piece of, when you're thinking about business management. So that's why we want to spend some time talking about how to increase the effectiveness. I'm guessing that quite a few of you out there are already leveraging workflow software. We're going to be really getting into 4 areas of focus over the next 10 minutes for increasing workflow effectiveness. So alignment, awareness, accountability, and acknowledgement. And with those, there's going to be 4 slides. And I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, of 5 being high, on how you think you're doing in each of these areas. And then when we get to the end, have a little bit of conversation with you on how you think you're doing there. So the first thing to consider is, who is leading workflow in your firm? Because if you say that everyone is, then that really means that no one is, and that could become a risk to actually having effective workflow. But we want to make sure that we actually have someone designated to be in charge of workflow. Now, that person could very well be you, who's in charge of managing, again, the visibility, the tracking, the resource management, and all those different aspects of resource management and workflow effectiveness. But it also could be that, depending on the size of your firm or organization, that you actually have a designated point person for this. So in some organizations, it's a part-time role, a part of someone's role. In larger organizations, they actually have this as part of the resource management role. But we really need to make sure that we're designating who is leading the workflow, that we're educating them on why that is such an important role and what the opportunities are. We also need to make sure that they're able to manage the workflow software effectively. And then we need to elevate them in that role. This shouldn't just be viewed as an administrative, role that's off to the side, because there's so much opportunity to be found in leveraging your workflow. So that's the first one. Who is leading the workflow in your firm? So moving on to the next one, it is, does your workflow software empower your people? So again, when we think about the possibilities and the advantages of using workflow software, one of the most important parts when we're thinking about those ties between people, process, and technology is making sure that the workflow software that we're using truly empowers our people to do their best work within the workflow. So we need to think about how have we set up our workflow to be effective and really help to support the people that are working in it. Can they find things easily? Are they able to move tasks around as they need to? Is it fairly self-explanatory in how they're able to navigate, and is it intuitive with how they're able to navigate? But with that, we also need to keep in mind that we still need to be training our people, but our workflow software shouldn't be a hindrance or something that people feel like they don't want to be bothered with. Like, I'd rather work outside of the system than in the system because the system is cumbersome. What this should be is really a time saver for our people who are working with that workflow software. It should be a time saver for you as you're working with it as well. So that's really a question that you should be thinking about. Does your workflow software empower your people? If you're using workflow software, I'd like you to again rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 on how you think you're doing. Next up, are our success metrics visible and transparent? This area is such a powerful, powerful piece of workflow softwares. Being able to have the tracking and the metrics and the visibility really makes a difference in just tracking without using any kind of technology or using spreadsheets or things like that. But first we have to define, what are our success metrics? How are we measuring success within our organization? John listed a couple of fantastic success metrics, but we want to think about those all the way across the firm. And then we want to align our workflow to actually measure those. So with that being said, once we've defined our success metrics and we know what those are, we want to align our workflow software and our reporting to help us be able to measure those. Being able to see things visually is huge. So being able to use dashboards and things like that to really make things more visual truly adds value in being able to do that. And it helps to be really a management resource for managing the organization and truly tracking the work as it's going through the different workflows. So again, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 on that last one, with 5 being high. And then we will get into our last area of consideration, which is continuous improvement acknowledged and celebrated? So John also spoke to the importance of continuous improvement, as I mentioned earlier, and that is such a critical part of any time that you are evaluating processes, that you're using software, that you are looking to get better day by day, to take those, find the weakest link and eliminate that, because that is where you find constraints and bottlenecks and things like that. And if we can work to continuously do that time after time, then that's where we're going to see a lot of gains in our effectiveness. But the first part is that continuous improvement needs to be acknowledged. So is your organization embracing the idea of progress, not perfection? There is no perfect tool, no perfect solution out there. There are also no perfect people who are going to be using those tools. We're going to find opportunities for improvement in all of those areas. But is the culture and is your mindset one of continuous improvement? And then with that being said, if we do have a continuous improvement mindset, do we also take the time to celebrate successes? There are often times, especially when we're trying to navigate all of our different projects, where we might focus on the things that are going wrong, we need to make sure that we are focusing and taking time to celebrate those successes. So how are you doing there on a scale of 1 to 5? So just to recap, here are the 4 areas of focus for increasing workflow effectiveness. The first one is alignment. You want to designate, educate, and elevate a workflow point person, even if that person may be you. You want to make sure that your workflow software empowers your people. You want to make sure that you have it set up in a way that allows them to be more effective in their work, that truly allows them to feel supported and to find what they need as they're going through their workflow. And accountability. We want to have those success metrics be visible and transparent. So first we need to define those success metrics, and then we need to set up our workflow to actually align with that, and then leverage the reporting capabilities that help us to have that visibility and to better manage our businesses. And then lastly, the idea of acknowledgement, to make sure that we are celebrating continuous improvement and making sure that we aren't just getting caught up in the things that may not be going perfectly with our processes or our software, but to truly take the time to celebrate those successes, because that's what helps to keep the momentum going. So I hope that you all took an opportunity to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 for each of these. If you added those up, and of course, if you were able to answer all those questions and you got a 16 or above, I would love to hear from you, because I'd like to know about all the great things that you've been doing within your organization to make workflow successful. If you got a 15 or a below, I'd still love to talk to you, because I'd like to know a little bit about maybe some of the challenges that you're having, and talk a little bit about how we could potentially help. We help, as I said, we focus on helping CPA firms with things related to process, and a key part of that is workflow. So I want to wrap up here by offering you a fantastic resource. So at Boomer Consulting, we've just started a new series. It's called the Pivot Power Hour series, and it's all about creating a firm that will accelerate into the future. It's a 6-part webinar that will help you navigate challenges and discover new opportunities. You can find details and information and registration links at boomer.com/pivot. Here are the highlights of what 6 sessions are included. So we have creating confidence in anxious times, creating new opportunities for growth strategies in 2020, creating technology strategies to protect and enable success, creating a culture of safety and trust, creating processes to sustain true business change, and I'll be leading that one, and then creating acceleration as we enter into the new normal. These are happening in May and June. If you go to boomer.com/pivot, you will be able to have access to those registration links and additional information. All of them are being held at 1 p.m. Central Time on the dates listed on the website. So really encourage you to take advantage of those resources. And then lastly, I know that these are trying times, that we're in the middle of a crisis. And even if we are starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, the impacts will still continue to be huge, not only for each of us on this summit, but also around the world. So at Boomer Consulting, we've put together a page of resources, which you can find at boomer.com/COVID, where we're sharing information and insights about what we're seeing in the profession. We're also sharing information from peers on how you can, and what they're doing, and lessons learned. So I would encourage all of you to take advantage of that at boomer.com/COVID. Also at boomer.com/pivot, you will find the links to the Pivot Power Hour series. So I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to join this summit. I'm always so encouraged by people who are looking for ways to be continual learners and figure out how they can continue to get better every day. You see contact information for Boomer Consulting is listed here. The slides will be sent out after you all's time together. And again, really look forward to hearing from you or seeing some of you at the Pivot Power Hour series. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, Arianna, that was amazing. Can we just give her a quick thank you in the chat? I know you're all blowing up the chat. Well, let's give her a thank you in the chat as well. That was wonderful. I mean, some takeaways for me is I love the point about if everyone's owning workflow, no one's owning workflow, right? I think that's critical. And I love your content about how do you celebrate continuous improvement? You know, as owners, we always say, yeah, we want it, we want it, we want it. Well, if somebody brings up an idea for it, how do you nurture it, that, and how do you carry that forward? So I absolutely love that.